Well, this next session is all about agents and agencies. We have one agent and two agencies, although the agencies are also in a way also agents. And I'll let Eric, Eric, why don't you address that for a split second? What's the difference between an agent who seeks sponsorships versus an agency that represents a brand? And I know that you have teams, but you also work for the brand. So you're kind of in the middle. You do both. Eric Morley.
Okay, so
Eric Morley is the founder of Blue Sea, everybody. I should have made that introduction.
So the agent is connected with the athlete, and the agency is connected with the brand. And so one of the things that is important is that how do you connect the athlete with the brand? And that's the conduit between the agent and agency relationship. And it's changed over the years. And what's happening is there's starting to be a merging of agency agent relationships within the four walls of an agency nowadays. But you still have the power agents like the Bobs out there that they represent the bigger names, and that's their sole focus.
Right on. And then since you mentioned Bob, let's go to Bob Walker real quick. You're the power agent, super agent. I called you the Lee Steinberg of motorsports during the last event. Why don't we get your take real quick? Difference between agents and agencies. Bob Walker.
Well, I think, thanks, Alex. I think Eric nailed it. It truly is. The agent is the relationship with the talent, and the agency typically has the brand or the agency. Really, you're either the ad agency, the marketing agency, the social content agency for the brands. And for us, what we've done is we have agents that represent the talent, but we also have those of us that represent brands. So, and a lot of times what happens is because we're working with the athlete and the brand needs support or additional help, a lot of times they'll bolt us on to do some of that additional work. Or if it's over, it's not in our skill set or not, we don't have the staffing to do it, I'll go bolt on to Eric and say, hey, Eric, I have a project for you that we're doing with XYZ athlete. This is what you guys do. And then we'll all work collectively together on it. And sometimes Eric will just reach out to me knowing who my talent is and say, we can work directly with you guys on this.
And since we had to sync, my audio wasn't working right, I didn't make proper introductions. Eric's obviously a co-founder of Blue Sea. Bob, you're with Connections. And next up, we're going to bring up Todd Steen, Jackson Motorsports Group. And Todd is sort of on both ends of the equation. He's an agent. He works for the Jackson agency, but he also has been an agent. And so where is he? There he is. I met Todd when he was the motorsports marketing director of BFGoodrich, probably 15 years ago. Was it something like that?
More than that. It was probably around 2005. You were still at Core.
Yeah. Neither you or I had gray hair at that time. We both had dark hair.
It can turn any color it wants as long as it doesn't turn loose, right, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I got to slick back today. I've lost it all, Todd.
Awesome. Todd, what's your take on the difference between agents and agencies, and how does Jackson differentiate the two? Because I know that you represent BFGoodrich, Michelin, but I believe you also represent Rob Mack, or used to. How does that work?
We've done some work for Rob Mack, but we don't have any agent relationships that would to speak of. We're a full service 100% one-stop shop marketing communications agency, and we're helping brands with their brand strategy, their marketing strategy, and therefore their sponsorship strategy, and helping them go to market. But I can't think of anything that we've done in the past 12 to 15 years where we've worked as an agent.
Right. Okay. So on the agency side, when a racer, a team, a property wants a sponsorship, should they approach the brand and then the brand refers them to the agency, or should they approach you directly? How does that work exactly? If I'm a racer and I want to be sponsored by, let's say, BFGoodrich, do I knock on your door? Do I knock on their door? What's my approach? How do I do it?
Well, I think it has everything to do with the relationship between the brand and the agency. I mean, we do some stuff with Molly. We work with Edelbrock. We work with Napa, and we're not vetting sponsorships at all for them. And yet we work with BFGoodrich and Michelin, and we do have a service that we offer them where we're vetting sponsorships. So a lot of times we get stuff from people that says, I contacted Michelin's customer service or someone at BFGoodrich or someone at the track said, we need to talk to you guys, and you do indeed need to talk to us. But then there's other times that I get a random phone call that's, I saw you guys working with Muck Boots and I want a sponsorship for my hunting show. And it's like, we don't do that for Muck Boots. We handle activation for them, and that's as far as it goes.
How would an athlete or brand ambassador know? It's like, if I don't know if I should approach an agent or go straight to the brands, how do I learn that? What's the trick?
Alex, I think it serves well to talk about what the people searching for sponsorship, whether you were talking about some stuff with Cam and Robert just a moment ago. You got to ask questions. There's 5 steps to sales, right? There's greet, there's ask questions, there's what you go into recommendation or selling yourself, and you overcome objections or answer questions, and you close. ABC, always be closing. But you've got to ask questions and just be willing to ask questions and listen to the answers to those questions. I wish I was good enough to tell you who said it, but there's a philosopher that said, don't judge a man by his answers, judge a man by his questions. And that should be the case when you're in the sales process, is you should be asking really good questions.
And that is so simple to do, but it seems so hard. I mean, isn't that right? All you got to do is get on the phone. You can call the receptionist and ask the receptionist. She might put you through to the right person who you can then ask more questions to. Mm-hmm. So how about Eric? Let's go over to you when it comes to Blue Sea. What do athletes do if they want to approach some of your brands that you're working with or clients? Are you any different?
Yeah, it's typically what happens. It's so tough because we get funneled a lot of athletes, ambassadors, just to check out from our clients, and it gets overwhelming. And I go back to the previous series where you had Robert on. He says he gets 50 DMs a day, and it's the challenges is our clients get that too. And what they do is they just forward it to us. Mm-hmm. But everything, the athlete ambassador program cannot be a tactic. It has to be focusing on a bigger picture of a strategy. Mm-hmm. And so once we develop the strategy, then what we do is we look for the ambassadors or athletes to actually fit into the pockets of that strategy. And so to answer your question more precisely is that, I like to meet people. I'm at a lot of events. I like to get to know people. And then eventually there may be a fit, may not be a fit, or it might be something that comes along the way or something of some sort. So that's one way. If they go to the brand, they're going to get lost in the mix unless there's someone in the brand that is really responsible for that. And then typically what happens in our case, if it goes that way, is then it becomes part of the bigger strategy, which obviously is like either a rollout, a launch, or refresh, or whatnot.
That's actually a really good point, that talking about tactic versus strategy, because you called me last week and said that you were putting a plan together for one of your clients. You had a little money left over. You were looking to run some ads on a network, and that was a strategy. Now, if a racer, obviously they don't know what your strategy is. And so you're going to be looking for the network in that case. Maybe it was, the strategy was let's sponsor somebody. But if a racer doesn't know what the strategy is for the brand, is there any way for them to find out? Or can they call the agency and say, what are you doing for the brand? Or that's probably confidential. How can a racer on the call get involved with your strategy?
I mean, nowadays everything's so transparent. Just look at their Instagram feed, look at their website, nice. Look at, look where they're going. Is if they're going to Loretta Lynn's, they're not going there for the tasty food. They're going there for a strategic reason. If they're going to a score race, they're going there for a particular reason. If they're going to a Cars and Coffee, they're going there for a particular reason. And what's important is that particular athlete or ambassador has to position themselves to be a part of that world. And so we focus on this 5-tier process. Is every athlete or ambassador has to represent and educate. They have to use the product. They have to sell the product. Mm-hmm. It used to be just create brand awareness and we're happy. Those days are over. and they need to integrate into a community. So that community has to be a strategic direction for it. And they also need to activate that relationship too. And so you hit those 5 on it, and that's how that athlete or ambassador can actually position themselves to be a part of that. So if a brand is going towards a certain segment, that athlete, if they're a part of that segment, okay, they're a strategic fit. If they're not a part of that, it's like it's a nice to have, or it's a short-lived relationship, or something that's just not in the mix.
It's interesting that you put that, because by looking at the social media, you can get a flavor for what the brand is doing. And then you can actually maybe guess or predict what their strategy might be. That's interesting. So Todd gave us 5 and you gave us 5. Well, go ahead. And then I'm going to go to Bob next after Eric, you answer this, and I'm going to see what his 5 are.
Well, just really quick, it's like, I was LinkedIn the other day, and I was flipping through and I saw Cam's video of the power sports battery. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's what Cam, okay, that's what he's doing now. And, I see him all in the quarantine cruises and all of the events out, up and down the coast and stuff. And, he brings his Power Mac truck out there, and, it's like, okay, that's where they're going. Okay, well, if I'm in that power sports space, that's my logical question to go to, because A, they're trying to create a buzz about this battery. B is they want to get it out to the masses. And C, they're looking for like-minded people to work with.
I saw that same thing, and I was thinking the same. Yeah, good point. That's a really good point. So thank you, Eric. Bob, you don't have to give 5, but I'm curious, when because you represent more athletes, at least from what I see, especially the Deegans. And speaking of Loretta Lynn's, and it wasn't Loretta Lynn's, but I know Danger Boy Hayden just got his first win in pro AMA motocross last week, right? Congratulations. That kid is on a roll. What do you do when you're seeking sponsorships for him? How do you approach a brand?
Boy, it's really from where we come from. We're like chameleons. We're adapting to because we're looking at so many different categories, and we have different athletes as well. I mean, I'll have someone in NASCAR, I have someone in score, I have someone in motocross, I have someone in X Games. So we have kind of people all over the board, but we're looking at, to Eric's point, what they're doing on social, where we're seeing other ads of them. We could be seeing them on TV, we could be seeing them in print, although print's pretty much dead. But we may see them at races. That brands show up at races, especially like at NASCAR. New brands come and go all the time, so we're constantly looking at, the track signage, the billboards, the banners, if anything new is showing up. And we also are talking to our athletes every day, and our athletes are the ultimate influencers, and they're out there in the know, and they're seeing things. And we have always encouraged our athletes to, you see something that's intriguing or interesting, let us know right away. And we'll either DM the brands, or a lot of times we've even had more success having the actual athlete DM the brand directly, saying, hey, I'm XYZ athlete. This is what I do. I'm very interested. And the brand can just go click on the athlete's feed right then and see how many followers they have. They can look at their content and see what they're doing. They can see the brands that they're aligned with. And our athletes have been really good at, they'll do that, and then they'll introduce us immediately and get us injected into that conversation. And then we do what we're good at.
You mentioned that at the last time we talked, that Haley Deegan will reach out to a brand, get their attention, and then you go in and start talking about the deliverables.
Yes. And Brian does the same thing. The Deegans are a business machine. They get it. A lot of athletes don't get it. They don't want to put that work in. They don't feel comfortable doing it. But you are your own brand. You are your own business. And the athletes that understand the role that an agent and agency can play for them, and you're a team. It's no like, hey, just because I got an agent, I'm gonna go out the backyard and pick $100,000 bills off the tree. I got you a new deal. It doesn't work that way, especially with the technology and all the access that we have to information and advertising now. But I really try to educate our athletes, like, hey, we're doing everything we can on our side, but we aren't the be all end all. If you come across something or you see something something jumps out at you, let us know. And if you feel strong about it, don't feel bad about DMing them. Take the initiative right away, because a brand likes it when the athlete or the celebrity reaches out directly to them. It shows that they care, that they're interested in that product. They're not just there for the check. And I literally just got off another Zoom. We were just talking about that. It's like, we're good on all this, but the athlete needs to try the product now. So you can contract this, but we're not done until we try the product. They like the product and it's authentic. They're not going to do it just for the check. Right. It's got to be on brand for the athlete as well.
So let me go a little deeper, since we started talking about, what an athlete does versus what the agent does. We talked a lot about agencies. Todd and Eric went into pretty good detail, but what exactly does an agent do? What is your role? Do you make phone calls and raise money? Do you do all the social media posts? Are you doing the legal work? Are you reading contracts? What for those athletes and racers on the call right now that don't really know what is involved in being an agent, could you give us a brief overview?
Everything. Take out the trash, carry their helmet, clean their goggles, fix their flat tires, do their legal work, social content creation. We feel strongly the athlete should be posting on their side to keep it real and authentic. There are some athletes out there that just feel that they're too busy and they want others to be posting for them. I think the consumer sees through that the majority of the time. So we typically don't get involved in posting for athletes. Sometimes it may be a sponsor specific post that needs to get up and our athletes racing at that time and it's time sensitive. We'll put those sorts of posts up, but for the most part, we encourage them to keep it real and authentic through their own channels. But like for us, man, it's a 25/8 job, 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. There is no downtime as an agent because you are here for your clients when they need you. And typically the athletes, the racers, drivers, etc., they're doing their thing all day long. They're doing their workout, they're testing, they're training, they're doing their appearances, and then 6 o'clock comes. And then I get more phone calls between 6 and 10 p.m. every night than I do between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m.
I could see that, yeah.
From our drivers, athletes, the corporate brands, the agencies, all of you guys on this call, we're all doing our thing all day. Then 6 o'clock comes and all the athletes got a call because now they're home. They're done doing everything they need to do. Let's catch up with the agency and see what's going on today. And so that's when my night times get ruined. And we have no weekends because we're always at the races.
You're always at an event.
But we love racing. So it's what we do. But when I say carry helmets and clean goggles, I'm not joking. I've actually had to be a spotter at races, which I did not want to do. But, you do whatever your client needs you to do is what you do as an agent. Good, bad, or indifferent.
So I'm going to head over to Todd and ask him the same question. What do agencies do? But think about this one, Bob. I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, because I think what everybody's curious about on the call is how are agents and how are agencies paid? And I know it's all different, but that's going to be the next question. Let's go to Todd real quick. Todd, what does an agency do on behalf of the brand?
Well, I think you are the hero of the world when you helped everybody define what the difference between marketing and advertising and branding is in your book way back when.
Read that, huh? Thank you. Yeah.
I did. And
there's a difference.
We help with all three. And we start with strategy. I share with people all the time that Eric dropped five steps a while ago. Marketing agencies should be very process oriented, and people fail, but processes don't. It's not all mushy gushy, emotional, creative stuff. There's actually a process, and it should start with strategy. And from the strategy, you build out tactics, and from tactics, you decide where you're going to go and how you're going to help bring the brand to market. And there's a lot of conversation earlier that being an extrovert, it's just hard not to want to butt in. But just because somebody's at the racetrack, it may not be for awareness. In fact, it's probably not for awareness. They're probably doing something with dealers. They're probably doing something with influencers. They're probably doing something other than just awareness. and the awareness is just icing on the cake. I've had conversations recently with a sponsor that their number one goal is downloads of an app and open rates of accounts. And awareness is like number 3 and number 4 for them. They just want downloads. And how do we build a program at the track to help them increase their downloads, or at an event, or even in their marketing strategy? And that's where we start at.
Do you, as an agency, do you come up with a strategy, or does your client come up with a strategy and ask you to activate it?
There's times that they've already written the strategy, and they've come to us and we have this and we need to achieve it, which was part of this phone call that I was on this week. But there's other times that we do workshops and we help write the strategy for them multiple times.
Okay. And then I'll go to Eric. Same thing, because you talked about strategy. You had the 5 steps, and strategy was at the top. Blue Sea is a very creative agency. Your partner Jeff, I mean, his art is just amazing. It's very, very creative. I assume there's activation agency, there's sponsorship agencies, there's creative agencies. Do you come up with a strategy, or does the client come up with a strategy?
So, as Todd mentioned, it kind of happens both sides. Is we have a strategy department that will actually, everything it's called GHOST: goals, objectives, strategies, tactics. And so the key thing is that once we understand what our objective is, then it goes into our strategy team to how we reach the strategy to the ideal personas and what we want to actually achieve in the end. And then what we do is, once we're in line, in approval, and everyone's on the same page of what that strategy is, then we'll focus on, what does that tactical plan look like? What is it going to do? What is the rollout? What are the 4 phases of it? It's, of that rollout and so forth.
So when people were signing up for this, on the registration form, it said name, email, I think phone number, and then do you have a question? What would you like to learn? We actually had 4 questions on the agents and agency side. Roger's question was, tell me about product placement. How does product placement work? So I know you do a lot of product placement in the promotions and the ads and the commercials that you run. Do you determine that, or does that come from the client?
That's kind of an agency side. Product placement, those days, in my opinion, are over. Nowadays, it's about that ambassador or that athlete, and that ambassador or athlete will bring that product into it. Like Robert mentioned earlier, is about, what? They're there to represent the brand and educate people about the brand. And that's the key thing on it. Product placement, I still see it. I mean, like American Idol, it's like they got the Dunkin' Donuts cup and stuff like that. I just don't, I mean, what was going to really make an impact is having that cup on that table, or having Simon talk about how cool Dunkin' Donuts is. Of course, Simon, saying how cool Dunkin' Donuts is going to make the impact. And so to answer your question is product placement. There was a time for it, just like print magazines, but it's no longer. There's that convergence of product placement with an athlete.
So you recommended to Todd and I last week, when we were all texting, a movie, Flaming Hot, talk about product placement. Holy moly, that was a great movie. I did watch it.
What did you guys think, huh?
That was great. That was great.
Yeah.
Every marketing director, I think, needs to watch that.
Yeah.
That's the new marketing now, making movies like that. And then of course the Air movie about Nike, the Jordan.
All right.
So let's
thank you, Todd, for the referral on that. I definitely enjoyed it.
That was a good one. No, that was a good one. I recommend it. Bob, another question. Brendan had a question. How are agents hired, and what are they trained to look for?
How are agents hired? By a driver or an athlete retained?
Correct.
Well, either the agent approaches the driver or the athlete about representing them, or the driver approaches the agent about their services for representation. Really the 2 ways, or a third party reaches out.
Okay.
From your question earlier about compensation, which I'm sure probably ties together with this, is we work off percentage bases for the deals that we do. We're exclusive to everyone that we work with. We don't do non-exclusive. Having a bunch of different guys out there looking for deals for you guys or girls is someone's going to get egg on their face. It'd be like Alex, you and I out there pitching deals for one driver, and we both hit Todd up at the same time, and Todd's their own. Well, who's representing the driver? Who's really doing this deal, right? Like who has control of this deal? And it's confusing to the brand. You and I don't look good. The athlete doesn't look good. So we work exclusively with our clients, and we work off percentage basis. Now there are agents in the world of NASCAR and other forms of motorsport that like to have retainers plus percentages. We don't work that way. So pretty clear cut. Like there's not like a lot of variation when it comes from a representation standpoint of how you find each other and how the compensation model works. Everything's negotiable. No two deals are the same. I feel like with the athletes. Some, if you get them as they're just starting their careers off, they have no deals. Then you have other times you have athletes that maybe they're moving from another agent to your agent, to work with you, and they have pre-existing contracts and pre-existing deals that you gotta unravel because the other people are getting paid on it. Then you're going to start managing it. So when you start getting into that level of representation and working with someone, if you're working with someone that's coming from another agent or someone that's been doing their own deals for many, many years, and then they want someone to work with you, they got all these existing deals that you got to kind of unravel and figure out how compensation work on those and who's doing what and how it's being done.
So you were mentioning starting out, the driver starting out, but we had a question from AJ who asked, if somebody wants to become an agent, what are the steps to take? How do they start? How can I become an agent?
Choose another role.
I agree.
Find another job. Yeah.
Find another job, man. I mean, we love our industry, right? And we love working with our athletes, but it is thankless at a lot of times. It's tough. It is really tough work, and having to call Todd and Eric looking for deals every day, and everybody, I'm on the phone all the time, non-stop, all night. And it's like your family life struggles and suffers from it. We're at the races every weekend, 52 weeks out of the year. I bet I'm at the track 30 to 35 a year, weekends out of the year. And I've been doing that for 20 plus years. But how do you get in? There's a lot of people that, stick in ball sports, and I know this is a motorsports centric conference right now, but there's a lot of programs at universities now that are teaching sports marketing and sports management and representation. That's great. You get the book skills, but you got to go out. You got to do some internships. You got to work with someone that's been doing it, or you have to have been an agent, been an athlete that had an agent, and you're kind of aware of it, because there's I shouldn't say a lot, but there's a handful across all sports that are former athletes that then become agents. Just like former athletes become coaches, they become agents and representatives. So that's one, the school's one way, being a former athlete's another way, being in the industry and transitioning over, the relationships in your database of contacts is what is so valuable in representation. Who to call, having those access, having the credibility, all that's important. I don't mean to be getting off of how you get in, but those people that are in the sport already make it easier to come over and start doing the representation because they have the database, they have the network. Now, do you have to have a law degree in order to be an agent? No, I don't, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and I was trained by Kobe Bryant's lawyer. He was a partner in my early days. So I learned from one of the best sports lawyers out there in contract law. So I look at it like, be a sports marketer first, lawyer second, because you can bolt a lawyer on for the tough contract work.
That's true.
But how many lawyers sell? How many lawyers are marketers? They're black and white, they're reading the words and that's it. Where the athletes need someone to make them the money, find the deals to make them the money, structure the deal the correct way. And then you let the legalese take care of itself. So I've had this mindset of be a sports marketer and a promotional or marketing person first, lawyer second, because you can always hire that level of expertise on your contracts.
Yes.
But it's that marketing promotional mindset that's finding the deals, uncovering the deals, and being creative to make a deal happen, because it is not easy. Even with big name talent out there, it is not easy to find a way to put these deals together. And that's why when you can bolt on to like Eric or Todd, and they have the strategy and they know what the brand's looking for, and then we can just bolt on to them like, hey, here's our ambassadors that could potentially fit for you guys.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Tammy says we have a question, but before that, since Todd chimed in real quick, Todd, you had your own agency for a few years prior to joining Jackson, between BFG and Jackson. What's your experience with it?
Well, if you go out on your own, whether it's with as a marketing services or whether it's a roofing company or an agency, your friends and your immediate network, I think, is going to take you for about 2.5 to 3 years tops. And then you better be growing the pipeline and you've got to be growing that network. I'm evidently full of cliches tonight, but there's your network determines your net worth. And that's never been more true when you're dialing for dollars like an agent has to be.
Network determines your net worth. I like that. Yeah. I'm going to steal that. That's a good one.
It's not mine, so feel free to.
Right on. Okay, Tammy
Alex
says we have a question.
Send you $5 for every time he used it, so I guess you turned it down.
Then it's mine.
Yeah, he gets royalties on that, right? Okay, Tammy has a question.
So Brandon was asking, can you address retainer fees for newer athletes? Are they a common occurrence for someone who may not be well established in their industry?
Todd, you're on the screen. Do you want to answer that, or should I go to Bob?
Bob.
That's a Bob.
Yeah. It's can you address the retainer fees for newer athletes? The retainer fees, I have not seen. The only where I see the retainer fees is in the NASCAR world. People trying to come into the NASCAR world, and the representation over there charges retainers plus a % of the deals they put together. In the other forms of motorsport, they've all been more percentage based. Are they, let's see, I'm looking at the chat questions here from Brandon. Are they a common occurrence for someone who may not be well established?
I guess if you're not going to be able to sell somebody a sponsorship on a new team that's unproven, should that team have to pay for your time, because you're probably not going to make up through commissions what you deserve for the time that you're spending? I have a feeling that that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, the outlay, it'd be nice to get retainer, but
the type of athletes you represent, you're at a different league.
Well, I am in a different league, but look, I haven't always had great, big name, guys that win every weekend, but I just feel like it's almost unfair to be asking people money to go sell for them. Either you're good or you're not, right? And that's why you get your percentage, and we take a bigger percentage because we believe in our ability. And I'd rather sink or swim on my own success, because I'm betting on myself. Is where I've always come from as an agent and a representative. I'll bet on myself. If you pay me a retainer and I feel miserably, I feel like I took money from you and I didn't produce.
Agreed.
That makes sense.
Totally agreed. Thank you. Thanks, Bob. All right, next question, Tammy.
This one's from Heather. At what level is an agent beneficial for a racer or a team? I assume we're talking much higher level racers.
It's a good point. It's like,
is it only,
do beginning racers need agents, or only higher level racers? It makes sense. It's a valid question.
It's tough because there are people that have just broke into racing that are marketable. And if you have a strong social presence and you're getting into racing, I think representation is going to help you tremendously. If you're someone that nobody knows, you have 0 followers, you have nothing. I also think representation becomes helpful for you, because those relationships, like Todd was talking about, your net worth is your network. It's your network and the credibility that you have as an agent. And if you're working with this individual, the brand, if I call Eric or Todd, because they know me, we've had longstanding relationships, they know if I call them, I'm just not going to call them to put some schlep in front of them. I have somebody of significance that could be of interest to them. So they're going to take my call and listen to it, but they're not going to talk to that driver athlete. They don't know who the heck they are. So that network becomes very, very, very important of who that agent or agency has. For someone starting
you have
off.
6,000 people in your phone, you told me once. Something like
it's
that. It's
8,500
it's grown.
contacts in my phone.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And I lost them because we got compromised earlier this year. That's why I know the number.
Oh, no. Oh no.
Which
Sorry
I thought my 30 plus years of sports marketing and motorsports marketing was down the drain when they got compromised.
Whoa. Sorry to hear that.
But yeah, it's your network.
Personal relationship, so it's okay.
Yeah, but you got to know how to get a hold of people, and thank God for Instagram, because you can DM people now.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
But there, so for everyone listening, there is a value, even if you're just starting off. If you get with the right representation, and a lot of times representation, like, we're full, we're not looking to take on more people. So it's, every scenario is different, but there is value if you are starting off. Don't feel like you have to be, you have to have 500,000 followers and be winning races and doing this to have representation. But if you're marketable and you have a program and you got the right people around you, and representation can help move the needle quickly for you and get you in front of the right people, at least. And a lot, I just want to know, yes or no. Is this brand interested? Just give me a yes or no, because we can move on to the next.
Yeah. Yes is good, no is good, and maybe sucks, because then you don't know. Then
you're tethered.
Exactly. Let's go to Eric real quick. We only have 5 more minutes. So I wanted to ask Eric real quick the difference between motorsports and other sports when it comes to agents and agencies. You're in very many, you have a lot of industries that you're in. Motorsports pretty heavy, but also others, you represent Acura and Wahoo's Fish Taco. You're in other sports.
Yeah. I mean,
let's talk about the difference here. Eric Morley.
It's, I'd like to say there's a difference, but it's relatively all the same. Okay. Because at the end of the day, the brand wants those 5 points I pointed out. And that person, that ambassador, whatnot, has to deliver on that. And so the only difference is like Bob's niche that he knows best and he's great at is motorsports. I threw out the thing, celebrity chefs they've got agents right now that are, knocking on our door to sponsor them. And that's a big, push up, the stick and ball sports, any kind of social media. There's, we do a lot with ambassadors, social media ambassadors for different kinds of things that we launch. And there's those agents. So it varies from one thing to the other, but relatively it's the same process. It's the service to get to the amplification, to get to the activation, to get brand sales. So it floats to that way. It's all the same. Just the packaging of the agent is different.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you, Nina, for that question. Tammy says we have one more question in the chat room, and then I'm going to ask everybody last words of advice.
Okay. We got a question from Anthony. Typically, is the agent corresponding to the marketing manager for the company the racer is interested in, or could it be a conversation between another person?
Eric, since you're on the screen, why don't you go ahead and address that? I think Bob already did mention it, that the Deegans reach out often to brands, and then he'll go in and he'll negotiate the deal. So both can reach out to a brand, I'm assuming. What's your take on that, Eric?
Can I get her to repeat the question really quick?
It's in chat.
Yes. And it is in the chat too, but the question is, typically is the agent corresponding to the marketing manager for the company the racer is interested in?
Yes. Yes and no. If there's it goes back to the strategy. And the strategy is like, for example, Cam's strategy for the power sports battery is very, very specific on it. That athlete would actually reach out to him. But if there's a bigger initiative in why, like for example, Bob's athletes on his role is those are bigger strategies. That's not just a execution of a launch. That's his strategies are based upon driving the entire brand existence. And so those are bigger conversations. Those start with the agency. The tactical or launch or specific starts with the brand.
There we go. Nice. That was very specific. I like that. Any last words of advice, Eric? And then we'll go to Todd and we'll close with Bob. Last words of advice. First, Eric.
No, go, Todd. You first.
All right, Todd, you go first. Eric needs to think.
No.
I think it's that know your swim lane, be really specific on your swim lane. Knowing who you are and what you're about is very important. Knowing, I'm glad we have Megan on here, is that on the social media side is knowing how your swim lane and your activities fall within your social media is equally important. And the other thing is truly understand marketing. You're a racer secondary. You're a marketer first. And you have to really focus on that. And, like I have in my notes section on my phone is if there's any cool activations is I enjoy going to events. And I also know, like, Bob mentioned, he goes to a lot of events and I go to a lot of events. I'm always seeing interesting, fresh things and I'll make notes on them. And that's the key thing that the racers got to do is they have to be a student of marketing first, a racer second.
There we go. Nice. Nice. Todd, thank you, Eric. Eric, thank you so much.
Todd wrote that for me.
I don't know.
I'm gonna steal it, Eric. That was great.
Yeah. It's like just close the book and end the chapter right there. That's
you just go chat GBT and it actually comes up.
Chat
GBT. The whole thing. You're good.
Now we know.
Last words of advice, Todd, for racers seeking sponsorship of working with agents and agencies.
So I think it could maybe be twofold. As we go back to ask questions and finding out what they value and what their objectives are. Eric while ago said goals, objectives, strategy, and tactics. I would add the ghosted to that, so it's not just ghost, it'd be the execution and then the data evaluation afterwards.
Nice.
So that you can actually understand what's going on there. And then whatever you're producing for them, people say content is king, but relevant content is actually the emperor. You've got to bring relevant content to the table, and not just I can get followers, because if it's not relevant, it's not relevant, and it can be relevant to their market or relevant to the brand itself.
Wow, I like that. We've not mentioned that yet. There's a big difference between content and relevant content. Thank you, Todd. I love that. That's brilliant.
But you see, it's interesting because if we were to have this conversation 12 months ago, that wouldn't have come up. It would just be content. Content
was king.
Yeah.
Now relevant content.
I would have said, I think it would have been authentic content.
Yeah.
Authentic relative content. The arc.
Yeah.
All the way. All right, Bob, last words of advice. You got 30 seconds. What do we got?
Last words of advice. I think we need to keep an eye on chat GBT to what Eric was just saying, because we've started playing with it on solicitations and it works. Like, it could be a game changer in the sponsorship world, guys and girls. I never thought anything of it. I had a younger person on my staff who said, I want to try it. I'm like, well, let's give it a shot. What do we got to lose? Right? Maybe we can cover more ground with people we don't have relationships with, and it works.
It not only works, I can say we did a session. The link was sent for some people who signed up automatically. Excellent. Of the chat GPT session that Cole did on the last seminar last month. That was part 1 of 2 parts. We're going to continue that on Monday, July 24th, part 2 for members. ChatGPT is changing the game. I'm telling you, I've been using it too. Guys, it's unreal. It's unreal. Listen to Bob. He can tell you.
But yeah, I'm just scratching the surface. I got like a junior salesperson that's doing it and playing with it and teaching me, and we've uncovered 4 deals in 2 months.
Wow.
Wow. What did you do?
Well, I'll tell you what, we don't have time for that, but Eric, I'll tell you what, watch.
You know what? I'll call you Bob, or
give me a ring. I'll share a little bit with you. I think it's something everybody needs to be keeping an eye on and paying attention to, because it's not going away. It's only going to get better. And the younger generation obviously gets it and understands it growing up with us. Us older people, we're trying to figure things out, right? But I let the younger people run with it, and they're teaching me and coaching me up on it. And it's an asset that we have not quite figured out completely, but we can cover a lot more ground with it right now by utilizing it telemarketing wise. Call it telemarketing wise, whatever you want to call it.
Having ChatGPT is like having an infinitely knowledgeable assistant all the time for free at your fingertips to help with anything you need. It's pretty crazy, but we'll go more in detail on that.
What is your take?
So that, from my side, that'd be one of my things, like, hey, keep an eye on that and persistence. You got to be persistent. You got to believe in yourself. And I'm thinking like from a driver standpoint or an athlete standpoint, not from a brand standpoint. But it's just, we put a lot of sweat labor in what you got what you're doing on track, and you got to be doing off track. And it's day and night for you at the same time. It's not easy. And if everyone's trying to win, and there's only one guy, one person that wins the race, right? So everyone else is, filling the field. But social media is very, very important in how you market yourself. It's not just winning. Brands are looking for that marketing. So if you can't do it on the podium, how else can you deliver for the brand?
Well, guess what we're going to talk about next in session 3, social media. So thank you, Todd, Eric, and Bob.